Hello again, and welcome to Wassen's Wellness Corner. The purpose of this webinar is to provide you with information regarding your behavior or your response to a shooting attacker event. One of my jobs as a clinical social worker is to provide patient education groups. And in these groups, we provide education to our patients and to the public at large about their ability to respond to a shooting attacker event. None of this information is meant to alarm or disturb anyone. However, it is important that we do at least begin to discuss and think about ways in which we can survive or protect ourselves in the event we are in a situation where a shooting attacker scenario unfolds. The purpose of this type of education is to use the first line of defense, which is education, awareness, and knowledge, to protect us from the problems that we can expect to encounter if, in fact, we are in a setting where a shooting attacking event occurs. These events are unpredictable, random, and for the most part are a total surprise to the people who happen to be present when an intruder intrudes firing a weapon. Regardless of the emergency, it is best to prepare for the emergency prior to it occurring, which is why we really feel that there should be some emphasis placed on training as a way of preparing for an unplanned, unscheduled, random event like a shooting attack. Most people have the mistaken belief that they will never be in a situation where a shooting attack will occur, and therefore they don't really need to focus their attention on what they would do if, in fact, there was a shooting attacker in the environment that they find themselves in. The U.S. Department of Education, along with the Department of Homeland Security, along with FEMA, all endorsed some form of training in order to prepare us to expect the unexpected, to think the unthinkable. If in fact we are to begin to think about and to mentally rehearse the concept of being in a situation where an armed attacker intrudes the building or the place you happen to find yourself in, then the training that you would receive will be invaluable. And in order to develop a understandable and plain theoretical framework for this training and the need for it, we have an acronym called SALICE, S-A-L-I-C-E. The S stands for safety. Safety in terms of being prepared, being educated, thinking about a plan of action that you would take in the event that this shooter attack were to occur in an environment that you would find yourself in. A is for alert. Alert meaning that the PA systems, the cell phones, your laptops, tweets, Twitters, any form of communication that you can utilize to warn the other people in your workplace, in our hospital, or wherever you happen to be, that there is an assailant who is on the premises and who is moving about and shooting people that he encountered. L is for lockdown. Lockdown, not in the traditional sense of the word, where we would advise persons to go to a quiet room, find an office, hunker down in that office, sit there very quietly and be very still, shutting off any type of devices that created noise. If you were to in fact engage in training related to this, you would discover that there are other strategic actions that need to take place while you're in a lockdown situation. In other words, while you're in lockdown, this is an opportunity to use those valuable seconds and valuable minutes to plan to either counter or to evacuate or to take some strategic action that you would implement if in fact the intruder were to find your office or your location and attempt to enter. Another example of lockdown is barricading. If in fact you can find an office or a room or an area where you can lock the doors, then it's also important to barricade the doors. Believe it or not, there are specific methods and specific techniques to use while barricading a door. And a certified trainer would be able to tell you the best ways to barricade yourself to ensure that the shooter would have a difficult time entering the place you've decided to hide. The next one is to inform. And informing is a continuation of alerting. Alerting other people in real time as to the location of the shooting. The shooter is going to be thrown off and be disengaged if in fact we are able to communicate to each other the location of the shooter in real time. For example, in our hospital, if the shooter is in close proximity to one ward, we may in fact determine that the patients would be safer to evacuate that ward if in fact they are far enough away from the shooter, as opposed to suggesting or recommending that they hide because they're in close proximity to the shooter. The next one is to counter. Now, counter is a very controversial technique. Counter means to disrupt the shooter, do a takedown if you're able to, and this has been a recommendation that has been criticized by the skeptics who feel that they would not like to have themselves or their children or anyone poised to attack a shooter who is advancing on their location. However, a certified trainer, if you were to actually take the training, and there's numerous trainings available with different formats, if you were to actually take the training, then a trainer would suggest to you, as I'm suggesting, use countermeasures only as a last resort, only when there are no other options available to you, and therefore moving away from being in the victim role and being in the counterattack mode. In counterattacking, you use whatever you can find to throw at the shooter, to disrupt his aim, to disrupt his focus. You may even find that you can use something as harmless as a helmet a bicycle helmet to protect yourself. In countering, you use whatever means is available to you. One trainer used a scenario in which he had the people who were in lockdown throw objects at the shooter as he came through the door. This is very, very valuable because remember, shooting attacks typically happen very quickly. From start to finish, shooter attacks usually last from 7 minutes to 15 minutes before the first responders arrive. In our hospital, we have security guards at all the entrances, but remember, even in high security areas, there are still holes. There are still areas of vulnerability that an unscrupulous individual may find or may utilize to gain access to your facility or to the area that you happen to be in. This is very, very important. I say again, do not attempt to attack and take down a shooter unless you have some specialized training, unless you have some idea as to how you're going to do this. And again, the best way is to prepare in advance for the possibility that an attacking shooter could enter your premises and be harming the people that he encounters while he's there. E is for evacuate. Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. The purpose, the whole premise of everything that we are saying today is that you are able to move away from the threat, move away from the shooter as far as you can. So, out of the 40 plus mass shooting scenarios that we've studied, we have found that if we recreated the entire scene or the entire event, the best recommendation is to run. Run as fast as you can away from the shooter, away from the sound of the gunfire, away from the threat that's being imposed on you at that time. The information provided in this webinar is critical because your survival, our survival, is important, and the frequency of attacking shooters is increasing. Sad to say, we have not been able to find a solution to prevent or to stop random shooting attacks, and we are usually able to respond after, in fact, the event has occurred. That is not to say that citizens, ordinary people like yourself, have not been able to prevail. Clearly, 1/2 of all shooting events that have occurred in the United States since 2000 have been stopped or thwarted by regular citizens, by ordinary people. I'm not encouraging, I'm not suggesting for a moment that anyone risk their lives trying to take down a shooter. I am suggesting, however, that mentally rehearsing, being mentally prepared, doing drills, doing trainings, and anything and everything that you're able to do within your power, within your scope of influence to get your organization to prepare is good. It's better than no preparation at all. For the most part, we find a great deal of effort has been placed on trying to determine when and where a shooting attack will occur. After researchers have studied the numerous cases of mass shootings, we have been able to reach certain conclusions that are inconclusive. In other words, these attacks are usually not impulsive. They are planned and thought out for the most part. The second thing that we've observed and we know for a fact is that most armed shooters are heavily armed with multiple magazines to ensure they're able to continue to shoot. If one weapon doesn't work, they have another weapon. The other thing that we've been able to determine is that attacking shooters usually feel disenchanted, disappointed, angry, and upset about the way they've been treated by an organization or persons within an organization. The other sad reality is that many of these attacks have no rhyme or reason. Why would a person attack a school? Why would a person attack a hospital? Why would a person attack a house of worship? So there are so many variables across so many spectrums that we have no accurate profiles of when and where a shooting attack will occur. Where we usually know that it will be a public place, a place where there's a number of people. We have not found many instances where an attacking shooter is targeting a single individual. Usually the targets are multiple. Usually the casualties are numerous. And it almost seems as though there is some competition in terms of which shooter can annihilate the largest number of people. It's a very sad commentary. However, I will say to you that some very forward-thinking school districts have mandated that schools K through 12 submit plans for an attacking shooter. And if this event should occur, they do trainings with school children in terms of what they should do if in fact their school is attacked by an active shooter. One of the photographs that went viral in a very short period of time was a photograph that a mother took of her 3-year-old standing on top of a toilet, using one hand to brace against the wall. When asked, the child explained to her parent she was practicing a drill. The drill is to stand on top of the toilet, hide from the shooter, so that if in fact he enters the area and he looks down, he will not see the feet and legs of the child and know that they're in the toilet. Other school districts have mandated training for teachers, staff, administrators, etc. And I say to you that if you have an organization that is peopled, attended by large numbers of individuals, you may in fact want to consider providing or seeking information about the ways to get training in terms of strategic methods to be employed if in fact a shooter attacks your organization, your house of worship, your hospital, your school. Because any steps that you take in preparation for this event, should it occur, will serve you well in the future. If you're in fact are going to run and try and escape through an exit, please remember that it's very important to not try and take your belongings. Leave your belongings behind. Remember, in this scenario, we're trying to save lives. If it's a laptop or a cell phone or a computer, these things are just stuff. You can always acquire more stuff. But please do not make the mistake of wasting precious seconds trying to gather your belongings and carry them with you as you try and escape. At this point, there are a few things that I'd like for you to remember and to bear in mind. Number one, safety first. Please do not attempt to move or to treat injured people. Leave that to the first responders. And I'm not saying be selfish. If in fact you have an opportunity to help someone escape, then by all means do so. The next one that I'd like to mention for you is if you try to run and you find that there are individuals who are in your group or that you're with who are reluctant to run, don't waste valuable seconds trying to convince anyone to go with you. Your first priority is survival, regardless of whether or not you have to leave some things behind, leave some people behind. The first thing you want to do is get out of there as quickly as possible. If you're able to hide, by all means, do so. Once you're able to escape, please remember that it's important to warn anyone else that you see who is unaware of the situation that they should not enter the zone where the shooter is actively involved in attacking. The main purpose of this webinar is to impart to our patients and everyone who happens to view this video with the knowledge that they can participate in their survival. They can participate in their survival by being aware of the various options they have available and moving them from a position of helplessness to being empowered to do something, to participate in their survival. There are trainings available, and if in fact you do decide to participate in some type of training, just know that the training may involve you role-playing different scenarios. One scenario may in fact be an enactment where you would actually put on a helmet, you actually put on a vest and participate in trainings with imitation guns that we call soft air rounds, which are usually BBs traveling at no more than 300 to 400 feet per second, so that you get the feel, you get the idea, you get the impact of what it's like to have a gun pointed at you and to feel a projectile strike you. This training has been praised by many people who have engaged in it, and I would suggest that if in fact you have the interest, that you extend what you already know about surviving a shooter attack. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time in Wassen's Wellness Corner. Good day.